Hello, my name is Cal. I work for Hawaii Department of Agriculture in the Pesticide Education Branch, recording a presentation today for you guys. This is actually the first time I've recorded a presentation, so bear with me. I hope I get everything all fluid. And today we are talking about the worker protection WPS, or the Worker Protection Standard, is a regulation issued by the Environmental Protection Agency for the protection of agriculture workers that could be exposed to pesticides used in the production of agriculture plants on farms, forests, nurseries, and enclosed space production, such as greenhouses, hothouses, things of that nature. There's going to be a lot. So I'm going to do my best to explain those. We're going to go 2 steps back. Where does the Worker Protection Standard come from? In 1975, Congress passed FIFRA. FIFRA is the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. It is a United States federal law that set up the basic U.S. system of pesticide regulation to protect applicators, consumers, and the environment. It is administered, FIFRA is administered and regulated by the US EPA and appropriate environmental agencies of respective states. So what does that mean? There's a set of federal laws that everyone in the United States must follow. These laws focus only on the use of pesticides. These laws are enforced by the EPA. EPA delegates enforcement to state agencies, so agencies like Hawaii Department of Agriculture end up doing the enforcement of this in respective states. All states follow these laws at minimum. Some states require more protections. Worker Protection Standard is written into these laws, into FIFRA. So far we have that a Worker Protection Standard is a federal law aimed at protecting workers and handlers in agriculture settings. So who does it really apply to? So the Worker Protection Standard applies to anyone using a WPS labeled pesticide at an ag establishment on agriculture plants grown for commercial or research purposes. So if you see a pesticide with a box, this little, they call the ag use box here, I'll try and use the pen. There you go. That is the ag use box. It says use this product only in accordance with its labeling and with the Worker Protection Standard. So if you're using this product here on a agriculture establishment in the direct relation of agriculture plants, you will have to follow the Worker Protection Standard. This is another example of the WPS box. This has some extra early entry requirements right there. But again, the main thing is that if you see this on a pesticide that you are using while you are applying this to ag plants, which we will define as well, you will have to follow the WPS. So, a couple definitions. Agriculture establishment means any farm, forest, nursery, or greenhouse. Agriculture plant means any plant grown or maintained for commercial or research purposes and includes, but it's not limited to, food, feed, fiber plants, trees, turf grass, flowers, shrubs, ornamentals, and seedlings. So here are some examples. A greenhouse growing orchids for sale. Some strawberries being grown in a hothouse. If anyone was to apply a WPS labeled pesticide, they would have to follow the WPS regulations. Corn grown in the field for consumption, either animal or human. This one is actually up Mauna Kea. This is the Hakalau Forest Reserve, and they're growing, these are, let me see my highlighter, these trees here. Oh, no, it won't do it. These trees are koa, and you can see the little red here is gorse. Because these trees will eventually be harvested for timber, the WPS applies up here as well. See, golf course sod counts. A lot of golf courses will grow a little area of grass to replace divots in the golf course. That counts as an agriculture plant on an ag establishment. Of course, commercial coffee farms count as well. So commercial coffee farms count as well. Have a little pause here. Here is a list that EPA put out of all, not an inclusive list, but all these areas would count as a ag establishment if they are growing agriculture plants. Again, the point I'm trying to hammer home here, and I know I'm talking to the Coffee Growers Association, is if you guys are growing a commercial crop, which coffee is a commercial crop, and you are using WPS labeled pesticides on your crop, then you will have to follow the WPS. So we're talking a lot about the WPS, but who is going to be responsible for following the WPS? Agriculture employers or commercial pesticide handlers must provide WPS protections to their worker and handler employees. We will define worker and handler employees in a slide or two, but just know that that is an important definition. Okay, so ag employer means anyone who hires or contracts for the services of workers for any type of compensation to perform activities related to the production of agriculture plants, or any person who is an owner or is responsible for the management of the condition of an agriculture establishment that uses such workers. So if you own or operate a commercial farm, you are going to be responsible for providing these protections to your worker and handler employees. What is a worker? So a worker is defined as anyone that's receiving compensation for doing worker tasks, such as harvesting, pruning, fertilizing, transplanting, anything out in the field. If any of these workers is going to enter a field that has been treated with a pesticide, there's been an active restricted entry interval in the last 30 days, you will have to provide these protections. Handlers are defined as employees who mix, load, or apply agriculture chemicals. I like to say as soon as they are handling the open pesticide container, they are a handler. You can send folks down to the store to purchase new pesticides. If they're not open, they're not going to be a handler, but as soon as the container's open, they are defined as a handler. Handlers also include mechanics that work on spray equipment. They will need to be provided these protections as well. So we know that the WPS is a set of federal laws aimed at protecting agriculture employees. We know that the agriculture employer is going to be responsible for providing these protections. Now let's get into some of the protections that the ag employer will have to provide. There's three main pillars: inform, protect, and mitigate. Inform, basically they want to ensure employees will be informed about exposure to pesticides. Part of this is going to be annual safety training. Both workers and handlers will need annual safety training. This is usually a video. All the trainings must be approved by EPA. The person providing this video must be considered a qualified trainer, which is someone that's passed the certification exam, or someone that's gone through a train the trainer course can provide these trainings. You will have to keep records of these trainings for at least 2 years, and we do have some links to the record keeping forms if you guys need those. I should preface this, the Worker Protection Standard was updated in 2015. And prior to that, you had a grace period before you had to train your workers and handlers. Now workers and handlers must be trained before, either workers need to be trained before entering an area that hasn't had active REI in the last 30 days. Handlers need to be trained prior to performing any handling task, whether it's mixing, loading, applying, anything like that. Okay, here's the example of the training record sheet. You guys can make your own record sheet so long as it has all this information. And again, all these records need to be kept for 2 years. Still on Inform, so ag employers will have to have a central notification site for their worker and handler employees. The central notification site is a place where workers and handlers, and really anybody, can get information about pesticides that have been applied at the ag establishment. There's 3 main pieces of information that is going to be required at the central notification site. You're going to need a safety poster. You're going to need the SDSs for any pesticides that have been applied, and you're going to need pesticide application information. So here is 2 safety posters. This one on the right here, I think it's the right, I'm not sure if it's me or here, I just drew an X through it. This is the old poster. I mentioned prior that the WPS changed in 2015. Some of the required safety information that was updated is no longer on this older poster. This poster on, well, at least my left, I'm gonna draw a circle on, has all the available information. And we have links where you guys can get this at the very end. So central notification site needs a safety poster. You will need application information. So this information must be posted and kept up for 30 days following the application. So if you're going to spray, we need the location and area of the area treated, proper site treated, date and time, start and end times, name of the pesticide applied, EPA reg number, active ingredient, and the restricted entry interval. All this information needs to be posted for 30 days at the central notification site and kept for 2 years for the application information. Same with SDSs. This is, I don't have a SDS up here, but so this is a little example. Number 1 here is just 2 mock SDSs. Number 2 is your application information. Number 3 is your safety poster. SDSs also have to be posted for 30 days and then kept for 2 years. Even if you guys buy a pesticide, use it once, you're still going to have to keep the SDS for 2 years. So that is the central notification site. Still on Inform notification. So all workers, employees will need to know about treated areas. You can either orally warn workers about areas that have been treated, or you can post these safety signs. Let me see if I can go back. So that's an example of the safety sign. Oh, we can't go back. Dang. Okay, well, I can't go back one, but you will either have to orally warn your workers or you'll have to post these signs. The signs are going to be required if you're doing an outdoor application. If the restricted entry interval for that pesticide is greater than 48 hours, you will be required to post the signs. And if you're doing enclosed space production, you will, with an REI greater than 4 hours, you will be required to post the sign. There are some pesticides that require double notification. Double notification is posting the signs and orally warning the workers as well. If a pesticide requires double notification, you will find that information in the ag use box that we highlighted earlier. It will say double notification required. These are generally restricted use pesticides that require this. We don't see them that often, but it is out there. Information exchange, not many people deal with this one, but if you guys hire someone to come spray pesticides at your establishment that is a separate entity other than you, you will still have to post and have a central notification site and things of this nature. But the commercial pesticide handler will have to provide you with the information such as area treated, all that other, how much they use, pesticide product names, but you will be required to have the information up at your central notification site. Protect. All right, so that was informed. We are now on protect. So you're going to have to exclude workers and others from areas being treated with pesticides. How you do that is up to you. These are kind of EPA's little bullet points to say, don't get pesticides on people. What they have in writing really is that employers are going to be, or excuse me, ag employers are going to be required to provide, maintain, and ensure the correct use of personal protective equipment for all handlers. Remember, handlers are the ones handling pesticides. Workers should not need PPE because they are not handling pesticides. PPE must be provided to handlers at no cost. You can't charge them for this. PPE for this case is going to be defined as anything other than the shirt, pants, and long pants and shoes plus socks. You're not going to have to provide those to your workers, but anything other than that, such as gloves, goggles, respirators, you will have to provide. And make sure that is being used correctly. I want to talk about respirators real quick. Respirators, if a pesticide label requires a respirator be worn, the person being required to wear the respirator will need a medical evaluation and annual fit testing. Medical evaluation is just a one-time thing where a doctor says you are physically able to wear this respirator. There are some available online. I want to say 3M has one. The other ones I'm kind of drawing a blank on, but if you Google online medical evaluation for respirator, some will pop up. Medical evaluation has to be done one time, unless the doctor says you will need to come back. And then fit testing is annual. Every year, employees required to wear a respirator will need to be fit tested with the respirator they're required to wear. Here are some respirators. This is a big one that people don't usually realize, but this N95 here is considered a tight-fitting face respirator. I know since we're talking to the coffee guys here, Mike Control and Botanigard both require N95 respirators. You will have to get fit tests and medical monitoring for any employees that are going to be spraying those products. Saying this is a half face respirator. This one has OB cartridges on it. Again, we'll need medical monitoring and fit testing. The only exception to this is going to be these what they call positive flow respirators. These don't have a tight face seal on it. As you can see, they blow air out through a fan pack. And basically, even if there is a opening in the respirator, the air will push out and you won't be exposed. You'll still need medical monitoring, medical clearance to get these, to wear these, but you will not need the annual fit testing as well. Guys with beards, or I mean women with beards too, whoever's got a beard, can wear these without having it interfere with the seal of the respirator. All right, still on protect. Provide, maintain, and ensure the correct use of personal protective equipment. Making sure that your employees wear it. I had an incident when I used to do enforcement. We did the inspection, and it was a mechanic employee that was working on spray equipment. The employer provided him gloves, but he didn't want to wear the gloves because it made it hard to, wrench on the machine. Inspection was going great. When they're talking to this guy, he said, no, I never wear the gloves because it's hard to work on the machine. We had to write up the ag employer for that, not the guy. The ag employer had to, take care of that, make sure that man wore his gloves. Okay, application exclusion zone. This is a new regulation. Basically, there is a bubble around your application equipment where no one is allowed to enter. For aerial equipment, it is, I want to say 100 feet. For backpack sprayers and things like this is 25 feet. Let me see if my animation will play. Doesn't look like the animation is going to play. Anyways, all this is supposed to illustrate is that in this red bubble right here, this is where you guys can't be. On the next slide, we have this airplane moves, you know, he comes down here and then he comes to this field, and when he comes this way, the bubble would be within these workers in the neighboring field. So basically you got to ask these guys to move. These guys end up moving up here. The plane completes his little path, and once the application exclusion zone has passed, these workers can come back to where they were working so long as they're not in the treated area. Once the application is stopped, there's no longer the AEZ, application exclusion zone, around the spray equipment, and you can come within 100 or 25 feet of that equipment. So mitigation. Mitigation is the last pillar, and it's basically, if there is an accident, we want to be able to mitigate and take care of any damages done. We will need to have decon supplies for workers and handlers. Decon supplies are soap, single-use towels, and water. For workers, you will need 1 gallon of water at the start of the day, soap, and single-use towels as decontamination supplies. They will need access to these decontamination supplies while they are working in the field. Handlers are going to need the same soap, single-use towels, and water, but they will also need a change of clothes. Handlers as well need 3 gallons, access to 3 gallons of washing water, as opposed to the 1 for workers. All these decontamination supplies must be reasonably accessible to workers and handlers. Reasonably accessible is defined as within 1/4 mile. So a lot of these farms are not more than 1/4 mile across. So if you have your decontamination supplies next to your central notification site, and it's not more than 1/4 mile away from where they're working or spraying or anything like that, you'll be fine. Decontamination supplies cannot be located in an area that has been treated. So don't spray the area where your decontamination supplies are. In addition, you will need a safety poster at any permanent decon area or any decon area that is used by 11 or more workers or handlers. Again, most of the time, from what I've seen, is that the safety poster will be at the central notification site and not more than 1/4 mile away from where these workers are. We had some with the MAC nuts where they are, you know, they have just massive fields and they have to bring all their decon supplies with them, and a poster as well. But it's going to depend on the individual farms. Eyewash. If a pesticide label requires eye protection, in addition to the decon routine washing water, decon water, handlers will have to have access to 1 pint eye wash immediately available on their person. This is either on the spray equipment or in their back pocket kind. You could use these nice saline solutions, or you can use just regular bottled water is fine. So long as it's not going to cause eye damage. Still on mitigate, eye wash water for for handlers using pesticides that require eyewear, you will have to have access to eye wash water. It doesn't have to be a fancy system. It can literally just be a hose bib. Again, as long as it's not going to cause any damage to the handler's eyes. So exceptions. So subpart, which means the WPS does not apply in the following circumstances. For mosquito abatement is one. Livestock, we're only looking here at workers and plants. On plants grown for other than commercial or research purposes, which may include habitations, home, fruit, vegetable gardens, home greenhouses. If you're spraying a windbreak at your farm, that's not your agriculture plant. WPS isn't going to apply there. Plants that are only in ornamental gardens. So if you're down at the park and you see, you know, someone's using a little bit of Roundup, that's not going to fall under the WPS. You'll still always have to follow your label and everything like that, but the WPS won't apply in those subparts. Exemptions continue. Okay, so that was I was just talking about. In a manner not directly related to the production of ag plants. So structural pest control, if you're treating for rats, you know, in the barn, control of vegetation. So if you're spraying weeds along the fence line, non-crop areas. So if you're treating for fire ants in your driveway or wherever they may be, WPS is not going to apply. WPS doesn't apply if you're controlling vertebrate pests, so birds and rats. Yeah, so it's only going to apply on the plants that you're growing on your ag establishment. And I'm kind of running through this because we're already at 20. So exemptions continued here. So immediate family members must follow labeling instructions when handling pesticides, but are exempt from most of the WPS provisions. You're not going to have to provide your daughter-in-law, your brother, your foster parents, your first cousins, your grandma. You're not going to have to provide them the annual training. Excuse me. You're not going to have to give them access to the central notification site. You're not going to have to buy them their PPE. Excuse me. But that is only for immediate family. If you are providing workers with compensation to do this, you are going to have to provide all these things. Same with handlers. This link, I guess I thought I had a couple more, but this link is to Pesticide Resources. This is a wonderful website that can teach you all about WPS. They have handy books available. Here, let me show you guys. These books are really great. They have the how-to about what all you need to do to comply. They have chapters on what workers need. They have a chapter on what handlers need. They have the nitty-gritty on, you know, how big those warning signs have to be. They have all sorts of really good information here. See, here's that's the information about the warning signs. Great resources there. They have all the WPS approved training videos on this website. There is a link to the Train the Trainer on there. Really wonderful website that I recommend checking out. And then last, this is all my information. Feel free to email is probably the best, or that bottom number 808-640-9076 is my cell. So that's the best one to get a hold of me on. I'm already at 27 minutes here. I'm going to look back at this recording. Hopefully I did well, and we'll be around for the Q&A session. All right, see you guys.